let's put together the bayonet grip and the ice pick grip, and we're going to keep doing the combinations for each one, repeating them, alternating them. And then if you have a willing partner, even though it's not realistic for the fight, think of it like special kata training. Your opponent tries to grab onto your arms, and I want you to only do the sequence. So memorize the sequence, the bayonet grip, you slash 1, 2, then up, up, stab, slice, up, down, stab. You can leave out the sharp to the face with the butt of the knife. Just keep in mind that is also a good technique to add to the fight. Or actually throw it in, just don't go hurting your friend. So you stick to that sequence and you see, despite your opponent's unpredictable movements, how many of the actual sequence techniques you can land damaging your opponent. So as I say, it's not realistic. You wouldn't be following a specific sequence in a fight. But I want you to force yourself, just for this training this week, to do that sequence and see, despite your opponent being unpredictable and you being completely predictable. If your opponent memorized those movements, they should be able to predict the next movement because they know the sequence. See how many cuts and stabs you can get in despite your opponent knowing exactly what you're going to do. Then we're going to swap the knife to the ice pick grip. Remember, this is specifically close range. There's no space between you and your opponent now. You need to get in there. So when you're training with your friend, make sure you guys are very close to each other. Okay? You're going to follow the sequence as well. So from here, we're going to slice from the hip here, up, hook, and back. Then we're going to slice from the other hip, up, hook, and back. Then we're going to stab, we're going to cut, we're going to stab, we're going to cut. We're going to pull down, up, pull all the way down, and back. So I think last week with the ice pick grip, in the theoretical part, I left out the two movements right at the end. Just go and check, make sure you add them. So from here, let's look at the ice pick grip again. We're cutting from hip to shoulder, shoulder to hip, hip to shoulder, other side, hip to shoulder, shoulder to hip, back to shoulder, stab, cut through the throat, stab, cut through the throat. Watch my other arm. I'm constantly protecting my ribs and I'm trying to parry whatever my opponent gives me. I hook down, come back up. I turn reverse grip down and stab backwards. Let's one more time go through the whole sequence, and then as I said, take the bayonet grip, repeat it over and over and over against your opponent. And from your side, very predictable, your opponent's side, very unpredictable. So let's go. So the bayonet grip goes shoulder to hip, hip to shoulder, stab, cut through the throat, stab, cut through the throat. Cut up like doing an uppercut, press down, just push straight down. Stab underneath the ribs to the lungs and strike. Maybe with this one, strike to the sternum. Then swap the knife around to ice pick grip. Again, tuck your arm away. You don't want your opponent just to hook under your arm. So from here, hip to shoulder to hip to shoulder, all on the same plane. Then other side, bring your arm in, keep it close. Hip to shoulder to hip to shoulder. Then from there, stab to the neck, cut through the throat, stab to the neck, cut through the throat. Hook the arms down and push back up. Then reverse your stance, turn backwards and strike backwards. Right. Go and practice that against your friend. And like I said, really try and memorize this drill, even though you wouldn't be using it as such in an actual fight.